you so much for joining us for this episode of Leading Change. My name is Emma, and I've got Denise with me, and we're going to be talking about the need for solution adaptability. But before we get to all the questions that I've got for you, can you give everybody a real quick intro?
Sure. Excited to join you, Emma. I'm Denise Garth. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer at Majesco, and I'm also responsible for our marketing globally. I have a pretty varied background in the industry over the course of my career, from insurance companies to Accord as a standards organization to in technology companies and even an industry analyst firm. And I've been with Majesco for about the last 9 years. Very focused on our strategy, very focused on what's happening in the market, do a lot of our own research and thought leadership that really plays into our kind of strategy, our products. And I think one of the really exciting things is that, from being inside the InsurTech growth over the last 8-10 years, being able to really engage with others in the industry like yourself, Emma, that really get a perspective from a lot of different arrays of backgrounds, I think has been really, really interesting and helpful. And just looking forward to the conversation.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. And where I want to start is kind of looking at that experience that you have over the last number of years, and specifically kind of like to tee this up, thinking through what I typically like to call like digital transformation, like 1.0, maybe 1.5 before we've gotten to the spot that we're at today. So can you kind of like talk through what you've seen in terms of that transformation over the last 10, 20 years, and maybe where we went off course a little bit through that process?
Yeah, having started inside an insurance company in my career, and actually starting out in IT and having played both an IT and a business role, it's been very interesting because, if you look back at a point in time, 20, 30 years ago, most of insurance companies were mainframe. They had very large systems. They weren't necessarily integrated. They may have purchased some stuff, but a lot of that was highly, highly customized, particularly if you tried to bring out a new product. Oftentimes, the vendor who might have been supporting that product didn't really have anything really available. I mean, I can go back to my experience with introducing both universal life and variable universal life into the market. We were one of the first companies to do so. And we had to work with our vendor at the time to really kind of create the custom code to be able to do that. And I think we kind of took that forward, even in the early 2000s when we had the emergence of best of breed with, instead of having the big kahuna, I like to say, policy billing and claims all together, we began to break that apart and had much deeper capabilities in those solutions. But we never really changed how we kind of operated over the course of the last 10, 15 years. We implemented these new modern systems, but what we did is we kept highly customizing them. While they had configuration capabilities, we still went in and we customized a lot. What that's resulted in is now we're coming to a point where I like to say, I actually put it in our top 10 trends for 2024 report, is that legacy is coming home to roost. And I would say legacy is anything that you've probably implemented in the last 5 to 10 years that is on-prem, that's highly customized and very difficult to upgrade to take advantage of all the new innovations or capabilities or technologies that are there. We really kind of operated in a mindset that said, oh, our secret sauce is how we do a workflow. Our secret sauce is this little kind of nuanced how we kind of reply. What our secret sauce is, quite frankly, in the industry is how do we manage risk? How do we underwrite? And what are the products that we provide to it? And what channels we've got? Those are our secret sauce that really drive growth. And while we support that in the background, we've got to change our mindset from going to a highly customized solution to one that can be taken out of the box. And what we focus in on to customize are those products that we offer out into the market.
So I think that this is, I full-heartedly agree that we've gotten too carried away with the idea of customization. And I think it honestly back from the very beginning was that build versus buy mentality. And just what you said of like, almost becoming a software company as your differentiator.
Yep.
When I personally disagree with Microsoft's CEO when he says every company should be a software company, because I just don't think that that's true. And I think that you're smarter if you take advantage of the tools and the capabilities that are presented to you and figure out where to differentiate in other ways that people can't duplicate. Because at the end of the day, you can come up with like a really fancy custom developed platform and think that that's your differentiator. And then someone else comes up with the same idea and does it over in their business from a technology perspective, and you're out of luck.
Yeah, I think the bigger issue is that what you paid for was not just the software that you bought, you paid for the future. And what you're expecting is that partner to be able to do some pretty significant investment into that product to stay up to not just regulatory changes or needs of different products in the marketplace, but it's technologies. Mm-hmm. What we're seeing now, I mean, we've seen a pace of technology the last 8 to 10 years that's, just amazing. And it's not stopping, it's accelerating, it keeps going. You just look at ChatGPT coming out just about a year ago. And Gen AI now is the big talk. And we've embraced it and we've incorporated it into our core, but that's what companies are expecting us to do. Mm-hmm. How do we quickly adapt and bring in new technologies that they can leverage? They don't have the R&D departments.
No,
they don't have. I remember managing an entire IT organization. We were just managing the day-to-day operations and what we needed to do. We had no R&D to be able to really kind of say, what are we going to do differently, and how are we going to, enhance and take that software to a whole different level. That's what you pay a partner to do, and that's what you want them to do. But you've got to change how you operate to be able to take advantage of those. Because if you're customizing it, you're going to be limited at how quickly you can upgrade it and the cost of that upgrade.
So I want to tap into just that experience that you were talking about within your past life. And you mentioned it with Universal Life during that first question. And I kind of want to understand, like, what was your experience with trying to get the software to catch up with what you were doing from a product innovation standpoint, and maybe kind of like the thought process that you had to adopt in order to be able to make that come to fruition?
Yeah, we weren't the first ones to bring Universal Life out, but we were one of the first handful of those. We were one of the first two to bring out variable Universal Life, which was even more complex because of the real-time changing of the valuation based on the mutual funds or the stocks and stuff that were kind of backing the product. And it was a period of time where it was high interest rates. And it was market conditions that really drove the demand and the need to have a different type of product versus just the traditional term and life. And I think that we came up with the product design, our actuaries did. We, from an IT perspective, said, okay, how do we think that we're going to be able to do that and support that? And it required a whole different kind of processing, and it required a lot of time and effort to be able to try to get that custom code in that eventually, was incorporated into the base system. But we were the first ones to use it. And it was a lot of stop and start type of approaches. I think back also to periods of time when I was with another insurance company. We wanted to bring out a new kind of innovative product that was very customer focused, that brought together, because we were both a life and a P&C company. And we wanted to bring those two things together to have kind of a customer experience. Well, we operate with two different systems. We couldn't take some of the cash value out of that to pay for the premium in another. Those were the types of things that when you begin to kind of look at the design of systems, you need a lot of flexibility and agility. It can't be just by product perspective. It's got to have a customer view. It's got to have a risk view. And so all of these different dimensions really get into the architecture and the design of the solutions that have to really have that adaptability. They have to have that agility. They got to have that flexibility because today you can't wait. I think back to when we did the Universal Life and Variable Universal Life. I think it was over 2 years before we finally got that product out to market. You can't do that today. You got to bring that product out to market in weeks or just a few months and get that tested. And if it's not going to be effective, you pull it back and you do something different. we've got to have that kind of pace that we've never had in the past.
So now where I want to go is talking through, like when we were prepping for this conversation, we were talking about like the parallels from that point in your career to what we're seeing carriers go through now with all the changes that are happening in the market and the call for things like parametric insurance and all of these things that we need to be able to adapt quickly to. Can you talk a little through like that idea of agility and what is needed from software platforms to really become an enabler of these processes, as opposed to being something that's like either hindering the process or for some reason putting the cart before the horse and kind of like in getting things going from that perspective?
Yeah. So I think one of the really, a couple of things that I think are really front and center today for insurance is that we've got both what I call a protection gap and we got a customer expectation gap. That protection gap is that people still have don't have insurance to provide for, whether it's a life insurance or some kind of property casualty type of insurance, to kind of cover the gaps. We're seeing a rise in increases in cost of insurance. We're seeing that for certain types of insurance coverages, it's really expensive or almost out of reach for some people because of the cost. And so that's where some newer types of innovation is really coming into play to be able to provide some element of protection gap, where like parametric is now kind of coming in, that you may not be able to fully afford a full kind of hurricane or fire or that type of insurance, but maybe you can also supplement that with what you can afford with a parametric insurance to kind of cover the immediate needs after some kind of risk. What is happening, however, is that our technology really is still very legacy oriented. And what we need is a different kind of architecture and a foundation to unlock the growth and innovation and operational capabilities that are really needed for just operating the business today in the pace of change that we've got, but also to keep in front of the forefront of competition. So what I'm seeing is that we've got to have a set of technology that has an architecture that has pillars of modern innovation. It includes cloud native. It's got to be API first, because we can't be doing all of these custom integrations. It's got to be API enabled that can be very dynamic. We've got to have microservices and containerization. It's got to be headless, because you may want a different kind of digital engagement on the front end to be able to kind of coordinate on the back end. And then you've got to have this embedded analytics. That, I think, is becoming the most important aspect. We've always talked about data being important. Now it's really coming to the forefront. And that includes being able to have data that is predictive analytics to be able to help in the underwriting process, right during the underwriting process, using those AI models. It's being able to have business intelligence and dashboards that you can assess the data and the information on hand as you're processing a claim, you're doing some billing, you're doing some servicing, and it can help guide that. And more importantly, now it's about Gen AI that can really provide a new level of optimization for people who are working in the jobs. You can provide guidance, you can provide information. They can help do their jobs better. And particularly for a shift in talent in our industry, where we're hiring in many new young people. They don't want to work in these old green screen technologies. They don't want to work in these very complicated technologies where you're looking at 3 different systems to try to figure out what it is that you're going to do. They want very intuitive systems that they've grown up with from a gaming perspective or from other types of experiences. And that's what we've got to be able to do. And those kind of underlying elements of that architecture have to be in place to really be able to adapt and do the things that we need to do.
Thank you so much for joining me for the conversation, Denise, and kind of talking us through your experience and the lessons that we can learn from, again, that like transformation 1.0 situation so that we can do better this time and have higher success rates.
Absolutely.
And if for anybody that's not already, make sure you make your way over and connect with Denise and give her a follow there. She's always sharing great information like that trends report that she talked about. And be sure to let either one of us know if you've got any questions. But thank you again very much and have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Leading Change. If you liked what you saw, be sure to subscribe and come back weekly for more expert interviews on digital transformation, change management, and emerging technologies.